Hello, everyone. Welcome to another session of the Virtual Pack Walker Summit. I'm your host, Rachel Martinez. Myself and my partner, Andrew Martinez, run the Healing Pack. We're a pack walking service here in Los Angeles. We put together this free virtual lecture series where we've had a group of amazing speakers donate their time and energy to sharing their wisdom, insights, and stories with you. Today, we have a very special speaker. We have Debbie from Bark and Barrel. Debbie, I've had the pleasure of knowing for some time, simply because of the reputation that she holds in her industry for holding a high standard. That's how I first got in touch with her, through friends, and have had the pleasure of knowing her for some time now. She's going to talk today a little bit about what it's been like owning a business and having employees. And so without further ado, Debbie, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you here and pass it over.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. I'm Debbie with Bark and Barrel, and I have owned my business. It will be 10 years in July. And let's see, so we'll start with the background. So it'll be 10 years in July, and I have a background in veterinary medicine, volunteer work. I've worked with rescues. I even dabbled in and was working doing anesthesia-free teeth cleaning for dogs and cats for a number of years. I've done training courses, seminars, workshops, lectures, anything that involved dogs, I got involved with. And then I also have a pretty extensive background in working with horses. And a lot of people might think, like, what do horses have to do with dogs? But when you think about it, if you can communicate with a 1,300-pound animal and get them to communicate back to you, it really does transfer over to dogs. And let's see. When I started Bark and Barrel, it kind of started off as a hobby. It was a way I was like, I can do this on the weekends. I can do this in between my 9 to 5. And it's a way that I could, gain another income. And so when I started doing that, I also started looking at places to take my dogs, because I was gone a lot of my 9 to 5 and working on weekends doing dog walking. I realized in the area, I didn't really like any of the facilities. They weren't horrible. They weren't bad facilities. I just didn't get that fuzzy feeling in your stomach, that happy feeling of leaving my dog there. And so the only place I really found comfortable was leaving my dogs with my parents. And when they weren't available or we all went somewhere together, I had to leave them somewhere. So I started thinking and realizing maybe I could create something where people felt like they were leaving their dogs with family, where a place where they felt comfortable and happy and excited to drop their dog off and go on vacation or anything of that nature. And Bark and Barrel just kind of sprouted from there. But I'm here today to talk about the rise and fall of employees. And I know that that title is kind of dramatic, but I didn't really know a better way to put it. And that was just kind of the first thing that came to mind when I thought about what I really wanted to speak about today. So as Bark and Barrel started growing, it grew at a very extremely fast pace that I wasn't ready for. I wasn't expecting it. I always expected when you start a business, it's going to slowly build, you're going to slowly get clients, and it will just keep kind of growing at a steady pace. Mine grew what felt like overnight. I didn't know what I was doing. I was basically didn't have any training in the pack walking industry. When I started, there was no one to help teach you. There was no one to help show you. There was no book stating this is what you do and you just follow these instructions. So I just kind of went along with it and learned as I went. And luckily, I had great dogs, but I found what started happening was the bigger I got, I eventually had, 10 dogs going out every single day, probably within the first 2 months of opening my business. And it was all from word of mouth from clients. I got one client who then told their friend, who then told their friend, and it just started snowballing. On top of it, I would take the infamous pack pictures where you line up all the dogs and they're looking at the camera, and clients went crazy over those pack pictures and would share them on social media and with their friends. So I decided, giving into pressure, I listened to friends, I listened to family, I listened to things about growing a business, and everyone always says you need to grow, you need to grow, you need to grow, you need to get as big as you can, because that's how you're going to make money. You need to get, the bigger the better. The bigger you are, the more successful you are. And you know that was the mentality back then. I feel it was that hustle mentality where if you're not working, you're not making money. If you're not working 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, you're not going to make any money, and you're never going to live the life that you really want to live. And I was stuck in that mentality. And I was, when it started happening, it's like it was such a high. It was, it was an ego boost. It was money was coming in, popularity was growing. And there was huge excitement around it. And I got really stoked. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to hire an employee. I'm going to get some help. I'm going to alleviate some of my pressure, and I'm going to get more clients in that were inquiring about my services, because a lot of us that enter this industry, I feel, are people pleasers. And I'm not going to speak for everyone, but I'll speak for myself. I'm definitely I have boundaries now, but I was a big people pleaser, and I hated saying no. I hated telling clients, no, I'm sorry, I don't have room for your dog. No, I'm sorry, I can't do that day. And I wanted to be able to say yes all the time and continue to grow. So I hired my first employee, and it worked out. We both learned. I knew at that point kind of what I was doing, I'll say, and we both just kind of learned at the same time what we were doing, and it worked out. Luckily, we had great dogs. My employee was amazing, and it grew from there. Um, Sorry, I have my notes, but so as it continued, I continued to grow, and I realized I need more and more employees. And this all happened in the span of years. Like, it wasn't like I hired one employee and then all of a sudden I hired 5 employees. I just continually, steadily grew every 6 months to a year. And then when I realized that we were starting to max out, I would then start, the application process of hiring another employee and getting bigger and growing. And eventually I got to a point where, if you include myself, I had 5 employees, 5 vans, and about 60 dogs going out every single day. And it was working. It was great. I liked it, but it was also very chaotic, mainly from my standpoint, because I had to not only manage employees, but I also had to have my own packs, and I had to go out with all the girls because I didn't want to not be a part of that. I didn't want to not be there in case there was a problem. I didn't want to, be at home doing all the back end stuff while my employees went out on walks, even though that probably would have been the smarter move. But I felt that I needed to have my presence there, because my clients trusted me so much. Because a big thing about my business, and what I always stood by, was I wanted my clients to see me. I wanted them to know that I was there, because I feel like a lot of them came into my business because of me. And when you have employees, and you have a lot of employees, then you start running into not necessarily issues, but every day you have employee problems. Like, you have call outs, you have people who are sick, you have employees that don't necessarily get along. Then you have the vans, and you have car trouble, and you have a flat tire here, and you got to reorganize packs there, and you have to move things around. And it was like, I called it organized chaos because it's exactly what it was. And looking back on it, there were a lot of things that I should have done differently, but being in the moment then, we just kept pushing forward. We would, either I would take 2 packs out that day, because I really hated having to call clients and tell them, hey, we can't make it today, because they rely on us to get their dogs out for that day, whether they have a 9 to 5 dog day and their dog is locked up for 12 hours. Like, that's not going to cut it. And I don't want to burden my client with, hey, you got to run home at lunch and let your dog out. So That was very stressful. And then on top of the employee stuff, you have to think about the back end where you have employee payroll, you have, tax payroll, you have workers' comp, depending on if you have full-time or part-time employees, if you're going to hire independent contractors or employees. And that's independent contractors and employees are a whole nother lecture. Because we could deep dive into that for days. But I got really lucky in the sense that my employees, they were amazing. They were, I did have the call outs, I did have the confusion, I did have the drama, but bottom line, I had one employee for 6 years straight. I had another employee for 5 years. I had another employee that came on for a couple of years and then went on to other endeavors and then came back. And so I didn't have a huge rotation of employees, which was amazing when you're trying to have a steadily run business. And I will forever be grateful to those employees. I did have a couple problem employees, would be the word, but then again, that just showed that I had to be the owner of the company and I had to let them go. And I had to go through that whole thing. And all of this with employees was things I was learning at the same time. I didn't know how to manage employees. I didn't know what I was doing. And it was a lot. It was a lot with running a business, having employees, managing employees, and doing everything in between. So I was getting very, very burnt out. And this is not like a bash on people who have employees, because if you have a bit, like, I know plenty of pack walking businesses that have employees and they're killing it. And I wish that they wrote a how-to book, because it would have made my life a lot easier. But I strongly believe that everything happens for a reason. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot about employees and the ins and outs of having employees and workers' comp stuff and taxes and all of that. And it's helped me down the road, and I'll be forever grateful for that experience. But I was definitely stuck in the mentality of let's just keep growing bigger and bigger. And I feel like employees could be a whole nother lecture, so we're not going to go deep diving into the employee realm. What it came down to was I was so overwhelmed to the point to where I no longer was having fun in my business. I no longer was enjoying doing what I was doing. And it's because of the stress, the anxiety, the problems, and managing all of my clients, keeping all of my clients happy, keeping all of my employees happy, keeping myself happy, keeping my relationship happy, and trying to keep that balance between work and life. And it was getting very muddled. And I didn't have time for literally anything else. And I think I forgot, when I'm the owner of the business, I get to choose what I get to do. And I think I forgot that while going down this rabbit hole. I could have hired a manager and let the manager run the employees and take care of the clients and do all the back end stuff. And that's what a lot of businesses do now, I believe. I'm not 100% sure, but that probably would have been the smarter move to do. But again, you have to think about, are you making enough money to pay everyone? Are you making enough money to go over payroll and do all of that? And it was just getting to be too much. And so I sat down with myself one day and I thought about all the pros and cons of having employees, having no employees, what would make everyone happy, but most of all, what would make me happy in this situation. And that's what it really came down to, is what I really wanted. And when I sat down with myself that day and I just shut all distractions off, and I realized my business was going in a direction that I never truly wanted it to go. It was heading more towards, I don't want to say corporate because it wasn't going that hard, but it was straying farther and farther away from that home-like feel where I basically know my clients' dogs better than they do. And I was getting away from I wouldn't see a client for months because that was my employee's route, and I wouldn't see that dog for a while, and it just didn't feel like that intimate, close-knit relationship that I wanted to have and what Bark and Barrel really stood for. And so that's when I decided that I wanted to downsize. And I was like, I can absolutely backpedal this. I can absolutely get out of this. And, it's going to be hard. It's going to be a long process, but it's doable. And I was terrified because you think, oh my God, like you're going to lose a huge chunk of income getting rid of all those clients. And I didn't know if I was going to be able to afford the lifestyle that I really truly wanted, because no one, everyone says the bigger your business, the more money you're going to make. Smaller businesses don't make a bunch of money, and you might not make it, and blah, blah, blah. And it was a lot. But I chose not to listen to everyone else. And I just started listening to what I truly wanted. Um, and then I started, rather than focusing on the money, I was more focused on me feeling fulfilled and me being happy and me working with intention and creating a journey for myself that I really, really loved and that my clients were going to benefit from and what I truly stood for. And the more I started thinking about it, the more I realized the dog industry, it's $1 billion industry. You can do so much more other than just walking your dogs, getting employees, and growing your company with social media these days and promotions and podcasts and all sorts of things. There's plenty of other things you can do to make your business work with just being solo. So I started the downsizing process probably 6 months before I actually did it. And it was mainly because I didn't want to just bail out on my employees because I love them like family. I didn't want to just bail out on all of my clients because they all gained trust and relied on me and loved my company. And it's really hard to find someone you trust with your dog these days. And I didn't want to leave them hanging. So I made the process. It took about 6 months, I want to say, for a complete circle to happen. And how I did it was I thought about my clients and how I'm going to alert them. Then I chose how I was going to let my employees know, which my clients, I basically sent out a huge email being completely upfront and telling them basically everything that was going on and what I wanted to do and how I was going to do it and how the process was going to take place. And then with my employees, what I decided to do was I decided to offer them basically their own business. I said, hey, I'm going to be downsizing and offloading these clients. Do you want them? And do you want to start your own business? And if you do choose that route, I will be there every step of the way, basically giving them a book on how to do this. And I will be there the entire time with anything that they need. That way, my clients could keep their dogs with someone who they already know and have established a relationship with. And my employees could basically, I will give them a little tiny oak tree that's already started to grow. And all they got to do is water it and grow it and turn it into what they want. And so since I had that lined out, I was like, perfect. Clients are handled, employees are handled. We can start moving forward. And then the next thing that I did was I basically got to pick and choose what clients I chose to keep for myself. And that was a very hard process, but it was a very eye-opening process because I got to be really picky about it. And that's when I truly got to find what I call my tribe. And they're the clients that have my back, that trust me, that are the ones that cheer me on, are the ones that if I tell them I'm going to take a vacation, they're like, hell yeah, you take that vacation, you deserve it. I chose the clients whose dogs that got along really well in the packs because when I was bigger, I was able to take on more behavioral case dogs. And I chose that when I downsized that I no longer wanted to work with behavioral cases, mainly because I was so overstimulated and exhausted from those years of working my tail off that I decided I just wanted the fun, happy, easy, relaxing dogs. And that's what I wanted to do. And if in a couple of years I go back to behavior cases, great. But my main thing was when I did downsize was I found myself offloading clients more so because of the humans and not their dogs. And I chose my close knit clients strictly for how me and them interacted, how we got along, how they respected my boundaries, how they respected me. And that's how I kind of molded my own tribe out of my big plethora of clients that I had. And luckily, a lot of my clients were amazing. And so my employees that did start their own businesses got amazing clients. And on top of it, when I did tell all my clients, I told every single one of them, I will still board your dog because I offer daycare, walks, and boarding. And so, and I know how hard it is to find boarding and to trust someone. So I told all of them, I will always be here for boarding. I may not be able to service your dog for daycare, but I will always be here for boarding. And so I was trying to make it as seamless of a process as I possibly could. But my biggest thing was that finding the right clients. And my biggest tip is when it comes to clients, if you want to be able to tell what clients you like and what you don't, is if you get happy when you see them. And if you get kind of like standoffish and like a not so excited feeling, maybe that means that they're not the right client for you. So after all of that, I downsized at the perfect. I don't know how I did it so perfectly. I really don't, but it all worked out to the point where my last day with all of my employees and everything ended. And then 2 days later, I left for a 10-day vacation. And then when I came back from vacation is when I started solo again. And that vacation was the first vacation in probably 7 years where I fully closed down the business. So I wasn't receiving text messages from employees. I wasn't receiving phone calls from clients while I was on vacation. Everything completely shut down. And it was probably the most relaxing vacation of my life. And I loved it. And when I got back, I started solo. The cool thing about all of this was that I found a new calling that I really have found that I've enjoyed. And it's helping my employee who decided to start her own business, basically start her own business. I have been there to help support build her website. I've been there to help support her through difficult conversations with clients, how to navigate through tough situations, how to set up a schedule, how to set boundaries, and basically all the things I wish someone was there to help me with when I started, I'm helping her with. And in that, I'm probably going to release this year a course that it will be all online. And it's going to be all about like confidence and success mindset. It's going to be about finding your tribe. It's going to be about, gaining clarity in the message and the path of your business, how you can, do advertising without spending a crap ton of money. Content creation is going to kind of be like a small all engulfed. Do you need to revamp your business, or are you just starting your dog business kind of thing? I haven't ironed out everything yet, but it's definitely in the works. So if keep your eye out for that. But in short, what I do want to say is that in the end, this is your business. You do what you want to do and try not to let anybody else or anything else pressure you into going a different direction. The good news is you can always turn around and go back, but if you don't want to hire employees, don't hire employees. If you want to hire employees, hire employees. And the biggest thing is like, just don't worry about, I was very worried about being solo again because I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to make that income that I was making. And in all reality, when my CPA put the numbers out for me from when I went back to solo and raised my prices to when I had employees and all of the expenses that came with employees, like the vans, the gas, the payroll, all of that, I'm darn near close to breaking even on what the income scale was. So everyone that tells you to grow, 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 do what you want to do. Bottom line, if you want to dabble in employees, go for it, because there's lots of businesses who are doing it and they're doing it right. And then there's lots of businesses like mine who are smaller and just a solo company who are doing just as good. And so don't let everyone tell you what to do with your business. Other than that, thanks, Rachel, for putting this on.
That was amazing, Debbie. I'm gonna unmute everyone. So you guys can ask questions if you have any questions right now for Debbie. Drea said, sweet, she would love that. She's talking about your course. It sounds amazing. I think that's such a valuable course. And I don't have like a question, but I just thought that was a really valuable perspective to bring to the table, because there's just a lot of different ways you can go with your business, and it's not one size fits all. There's people who really want to scale a business, and there's people who want to do something a little more personal or smaller or whatever. But like, I just think it's a great perspective to offer, that like you've tried different things, you found what worked for you, and kind of encouraging people to do the same for themselves.
Totally. I'm really excited I've been wanting to do this course for a long time, and I just haven't been able to put the thought and dedication into it. And then when I've been helping my employee get everything set up, it's like I've really enjoyed helping her navigate through the rocky roads, especially when it comes to having difficult conversations with clients, because that's one thing that I have found that can be hard. I struggled with it for a long time, with having to be very blunt with clients and learning how to be honest with them, but then also kind and helpful in the same way. And so I really just enjoyed that with helping her and everything.
To add to that, I think Maria is the one who has a saying, it's like fair but firm. Is that correct,
Mhm.
Maria? She taught me that one many years ago. She also was asking, do you have packs out 5 days a week?
I do not anymore. When I downsized it to exactly what I wanted. And so right now I have packs going out Monday through Thursday, and then I offer, and so rewind a little bit. I completely cut only pack walks out of my services. So I no longer offer the service of just a pack walk where we pick up, walk the dogs, drop them off. I only have 2 services now, and it's daycare, which includes the pack walk, and then boarding. And so everyone coming into the program has to be on a 2-day-a-week schedule, and they have to do the full day of daycare. And so that way it cuts out my drop offs. So I no longer have to drive around in the afternoon and drop dogs off.
Beautiful. Jesse said, oh my God, love this lecture. Andrew said this was very valuable. Thank you for your share. Shauna says, thanks, Debbie. Mountain Dog says, fantastic. I love Charles. He's great.
I love it. I love it.
Oh,
Hi guys. Can you guys hear me?
we
Yeah.
can.
Hi. First of all, this was very emotional. Hearing this. Because it's kind of where I am right now.
Oh, you're gonna make me cry.
And everything that you were describing, with so many people wanting and you just wanting to be able to offer that. And just saying yes, 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 and bringing on the employees. Now I do find that, I'm lots of balls up in the air, and just constantly just making sure that everybody does what they're supposed to do, and, having sick people out. So you're working as a person, you're also trying to run the business. You're also signed up for this bloody pack walker thing, and you've got to create that. That's coming up on Friday. I'm like, fucking hell. This has been the first live that I actually was able to finish work and get to. I was like, thank God it's at 6, because I think I really need to hear this in live time. My question is, So I started with pack walks, and then I kind of moved it into a facility because I was boarding 30 dogs in my house, and there was nonstop boarding, and I just didn't have a life. So thinking, if I have a place and some people can do this. But my question is, did you rent out a place for boarding for the daycare, or do you run it through your house? Because the pressure for me is I don't really feel like my overheads are so high and I'm locked into a lease that I have all these dreams that you're saying. I'm like, I could pack walk 3 days a week and have it as like a thing, and just do training sessions here and there and make sure I always have my weekends off.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, it was just like the overhead question of, had you locked into a lease or anything like that where you were stuck?
So I got extremely lucky and I have a house with property.
Ah,
And
okay.
so I run it, and I've honestly, for years, I've talked about building a like barn or something where I can move the boarding kids out. But then in my head, I'm like, oh my God, then I'll start saying yes to everyone again, and it'll start building and the snowball will happen. So the overhead is tough, especially in your situation where you have a facility that you have to make that rent. You have
Yeah.
to pay those bills. And I had a pretty large, I mean, not nowhere near probably what yours is, but my overhead was basically all the vans. So when I started hiring people, I required them to have their own vehicle. And then as I grew, I realized how ridiculous that ask was. Like, hey, bring your own vehicle, throw a bunch of dogs in that might go to the bathroom and throw up in there and get hair everywhere, and then take your vehicle out to dinner that night.
Yeah.
Like, it was a ridiculous ask, and I found I wasn't getting a lot of applicants. So when I started offering vans to people, I got a lot more applications. And so I had, the vans they were obviously financed because I didn't have the cash for them. So I financed, the vans, and then the insurance for the vans, and then, the payroll, and then the gas on top of it. And so my overhead was pretty high, but I was able to alleviate a lot of it when I got rid of employees. Like,
Yeah.
I sold off all the vans. And so now it's just me and my van and my mortgage. And so you're probably in a little bit tougher of a spot.
Yeah.
But when your lease date comes, maybe that would be a good hard stop date to look forward to if you really did want to consider downsizing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it will be I won't be extending for sure. I think I've got 4 more years, but yeah, I'm looking forward to that time where I can just be more responsible and more creative and pick and choose more. And because there's so many things that are available to do beyond,
Yeah.
know,
Or
but
maybe find a way to make more income through social media or a course or podcast or things of that nature that will supplement some of it so that you don't have to be as big.
it doesn't have to be. Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be, because I feel you on it's tough. It's tough no matter how much help you have, because you feel, in my mind, I was like, employees are going to help alleviate some of this.
Yeah.
And I never felt that
And it
alleviated.
really is true as far as, we generate a lot of money.
Yeah.
However, so much of it goes out. Like, I'm not making any more personally right now than what I did when, I was small, just picking up dogs and stuff, because the bigger you get, the higher your cost gets. And then as soon as you get in a bigger tax bracket, then the government takes majority of it as well. And every single entity has their hand out because you got to do this and this and this and this. And I'm like, what's the point of growing big? It doesn't really.
It doesn't. And that's what it came down to for me. I was like, it wasn't for me. And I'm much happier being small again.
Yeah. I'm realizing it's not for me. You're
Well,
on the hook though. I'm like, well, I can't just as much as I'd just like to run out my line of credit and skip the country and be a fugitive for the rest of my lifetime.
Well, if you ever need someone to talk to, reach out, please.
Thank you.
Please.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you
course.
so much. It was a great lecture and something that I really needed to hear. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Drea from Essex just said this is also validating. And Beth from the Soulful Pack said just starting out and running things solo, but this is so inspiring. I mean, I think it's like so valuable for people to hear. Like, I think sometimes there's a glorification of having a really big business or having lots of dogs and like lots of clients or even just like high-end clientele. And there's a little bit of disconnection from just exactly how much all of those things require as well. Like there is a price that you pay to play in that game. And I think it's just, yeah, again, really helpful for people to see people who've been in the industry for a while, being able to have options about like how you want to operate and what that comes with.
Totally. And I'm always available if anyone's watching this and they want to reach out and they want help in the downsizing or figuring out if they want to downsize, please reach out. I was lucky enough to be in a community of pack walkers when I chose to downsize. And so I reached out to one of my friends who's a pack walker who was a smaller company. And I was like, I need help. I don't know what to do. And she's the one that really helped validate what I was feeling and really helped push me and say, hey, you don't have to do this. You can very well go back and figure out a way to make the income you need to make and be more the business you want to be. And she was 1,000% right. And I feel it. I know I've been solo now for 2 years this month and probably almost to the day. And I've never been happier. Like my clients are happy. I can feel it in my clients. I feel it in myself. I can do things without, hesitation and feel good about it. I don't feel that guilt where it's like, if I'm gone a weekend or whatever, and I'm leaving someone hanging. All of my clients are very supportive and they cheer me on when I tell them I need to, I'm taking this weekend off. They're like, hell yeah, hopefully you're going somewhere fun. And that's what you want when you run a business. Like my clients are like family to me and I could not be happier with it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Sierra also said, love this. I have huge demand to expand my hikes, but I think your story validates staying solo.
Absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with expanding. I just want to tell you, but it just wasn't for me. I mean, I follow a few very large businesses on Instagram and social media, and I almost one day want to reach out to them and be like, how do you do this? And like, what is your mental state of mind? Just to see how they do it, because I would genuinely be interested, or maybe it'd be a good lecture for next time we do this.
Totally. Amazing. Well, if we have any more questions, now would be the time to bring them to the table. Feel free to unmute yourself. If not, we'll go ahead and close it out. Debbie, thank you so much for your time and just dedication today and your perspectives. I think it's clear to see from the comments, there was a lot of people that were really resonating with the message that you brought today. Thank you so much for sharing your time. If you guys want to get in touch with her, you can check out her social media. You should be able to find the links through her page. Stay tuned to the rest of our lectures coming up this week. Very excited for what's yet to come. And thanks for attending. Hope you guys all have a great rest of the night.
Thank
Bye, guys.
you guys.
Bye, everyone.